Heads up! You are in the Hoodwood, internet spot for sports discussion. I'm your man KJ. This week, got lots of thoughts on a myriad of things. First of all, why I think Roger Goodell is ruining the NFL game that I love. And would MJ really get his ass kicked by Kobe in a game of one-on-one? Mas Tanaka, the Japanese sensation, is he really worth the hype and $155 million? And why I think John Tortorella of the Vancouver Canucks has taken over as the stupidest coach in pro sports, not just hockey, in pro sports. That, along with Fat Dap and Head Slap, a whole lot of sports discussion. Are you ready? Let's go! Greetings from the Hoodwood. I'm your man KJ the Black Bandit, where the snow piles up, temperatures go down, and I'm just sick of snow. I ain't gonna lie to you. And the Super Bowl, now there are two. The Broncos and the Seahawks win their respective conference championships and head off to beautiful New Jersey. It's gonna be 35 degrees, maybe, at kickoff. Week from this Sunday, Meadowlands, games outdoors. It's probably going to snow, and I'm going to hear for 2 weeks all the media complaining, we're in New York, it's cold, it's snowy, we should be so. You know what? I don't even want to hear it. The average fan can't even go to the Super Bowl anymore, considering that the first Super Bowl was played in 1967 and the tickets were $12 and $8. This year, the cheapest ticket that you can get for the Super Bowl is $700. And those are bleeders. I'm not even talking about the ones that are even close to the field. I mean, you regular Joe like you and me could never even think about getting tickets to the Super Bowl. And me, myself, I've been to an NBA Finals. I've been to a couple Final Fours. I've been to a World Series game. But I don't think in my lifetime, unless I hit the Powerball, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to go to the Super Bowl because I can't afford it. One person who's going to be at the Super Bowl, of course, is going to be NFL Commissioner, head poobah, Roger Goodell. Now, Roger Goodell has been the NFL Commissioner for a few years now, and many people say he's laid the law down and tried to clean up the game, which I don't think the game was really dirty to begin with, but he's done a lot of things that people don't like. A lot of the players aren't in favor of his tenure. A USA Today poll recently had 61% of the NFL player rank and file saying that they disapprove of the job that he is doing. NFL owners, of course, like him. They recently gave him a new 5-year contract that pays him $29.5 million. Not $29 million over the life of the contract. It's $29.5 million a year. Now, to be fair, Roger Goodell is running one of the most powerful sports entities in the world, in the NFL, which is a multi-billion-dollar business. Each one of the 32 franchises are at least averaging anywhere from $700 million to $1 billion average value. And a couple of the franchises are worth over $1 billion. So it's not like the NFL is not profitable. The thing about with the NFL is that Roger Goodell is running the game with a quote-unquote iron fist. He is the type of person, it's his way or the highway, and he's going to be the head poobah of the game. Now, there are some things that he has tried to implement and recommend that I'm not in favor of, increasing the number of games in the NFL regular season from 16 to 18. It's been 16 games for close to 35 years. They started playing the 16-game schedule in 1978. Now they've added the bye, so there's 17 weeks. For one year they had a season with two byes in it, which made the season 18 weeks, which made things kind of long and convoluted, which I don't think really needed to be. Goodell has pushed the schedule into February. This year's Super Bowl we played on February 2nd. Now, I remember a time when the Super Bowl was played in mid-January, not early February. But they are trying to increase the global brand where the NFL is dominating the sports calendar. It's already right past Labor Day when they start, which I never really had a problem with. But now the season runs almost right to New Year's. As a regular season, the playoffs almost run a solid month, which I don't have a problem with. What I do have a problem with is you're adding 2 more games to the schedule. You're adding potentially more injuries, dragging out a long season, and then you want to add more playoff teams, watering down the playoff product. Now, I understand the Cardinals won 10 games this year and were shut out of the playoffs. That I think is a rare exception. You're gonna have teams that are gonna win a lot of games but not make the playoffs. Take care of your business on the field. You don't have to worry about it. Win your division. Both the wild card teams had 12 and 11 wins. I really can't say that much for the Cardinals. I felt bad that they got shut out, but what's adding another team and making one team with a bye? How is that going to make the product any better? How are we going to set this up for the playoffs? Right now, the way the playoff structure is, with the twin doubleheaders on Saturday and Sunday, I think are perfect. You don't mess with a good thing. The product is perfect. The ratings have never been higher. The excitement and the enjoyment of the game has never been higher. NFL is the number one sport in the country. Not the NBA, not Major League Baseball, certainly not soccer, certainly not hockey. It is football. And that's it. College football is good, but the NFL is the creme de la creme. And Roger Goodell, with his little tinkerings, proposing eliminating the point after for kicks. You don't want to kick for extra point. It is just tinkering with the game that doesn't need to be messed with. Why mess with a good thing? And people are saying, well, it's progress. We need progress. Keep evolving. But there's such thing as over tinkering, stirring the pot too much. You stir the pot too much, the broth gets thin. And this, in essence, is something that doesn't need to be messed with. Roger Goodell has way too much power, and I think he's gotten drunk with power. That he thinks his little tinkerings are going to make the game great, and all it's going to do is ruin the game that and I'm sure you love. I'm confused. I follow baseball. Baseball was always my first love. One of the first sports memories I have is my mom taking me to a baseball game when I was I wasn't even 7 years old. And I learned about the game from watching endless baseball games over the years. And I've always respected pitchers. Pitchers are the crux of the game. There are so many great pitchers that I can remember. Like I said, the first game that I went to actually was 2 great pitchers playing against one another. Tom Seaver, future Hall of Famer for the Reds. You didn't know we forgot he played for the Reds for a little while. Played for the Reds for 5 years. He was pitching against the big 6'7" J.R. Richard, who his career stunted by a stroke, but he was at the apex, of his dominance in the late 70s for the Astros. So I find out, well after the fact, because I was a kid then, that these two, was going to a game with 2 really great pitchers. Now, there is another great pitcher that's come down the pike from Japan. And Japan has produced some good players. I mean, of course, everyone thinks, well, Japanese players, they always think of the great Ichiro Suzuki, the hitting machine that came to Seattle Mariners in 2001, was one of the first players to win Rookie of the Year and Most Valuable Player for that great Seattle team in 2001, and he's been a hitting machine ever since. Will he go to the Hall of Fame? He's a moral lock for a Hall of Fame when he hangs it up. The pitching has been a bit uneven. Hideo Nomo comes to mind. Daisuke Matsuzaka was of late. He was playing fairly well for the Boston Red Sox, kind of washed out a little bit. Darvish has been the dominant pitcher for the Texas Rangers over the last couple of years. But coming down the pike is Mas Tanaka. If you've never heard of this kid, from what I have seen and read, electric stuff. A live fastball, a killer curveball, pinpoint control. Now, you say, how good was this guy? He went 24-0 last year in the Japanese Central League. 24-0. Not 1, not 2, 0. No losses. Now, I don't care what league you're playing in. If you pitch that many times and you don't have any losses, you're pretty dominant. Well, he declared his free agency in about half in the Japanese league, and about a half a dozen major league teams put up the $20 million posting bond to bid for his services. $20 million you got to pay just to bid for the rights to this guy. I think that system's kind of messed up, but it's not my call. That's not the money. That's not my money to spend. I don't really care about that. But after half a dozen teams put in bids, the winning bid went to, surprise, surprise, the New York Yankees, who signed Tanaka to a 7-year, $155 million contract. Sight unseen. I shouldn't say sight unseen because they know the kid's style and what he can do. But without having pitched to a major league pitcher and batter, without having played against major league caliber hitting. And many people are wondering, is this guy worth it? Me, myself, I'm kind of leery about this. I mean, granted, Darvish came out and has been pitching very well for the Rangers over the last couple of years, but I'm always really leery about giving big contracts to foreign players who haven't been playing at the highest level. And Major League Baseball is, without a doubt, the highest level of baseball in the world. Mm-hmm. Though its players in the World Baseball Classic have not done very well. But I still say as a whole, Major League Baseball is the creme de la creme of baseball. And I want to see him prove himself. I want to see this guy pitch against the Boston Red Sox's killer lineup, the heavy hitters of the Texas Rangers. I want to see him try to sneak a fastball by Albert Pujols. I want to see him, even though now they're teammates, so I don't think that's going to happen. But I would like to see him try to throw one past Ichiro. Ichiro's been in the league 12, 13 years, so I consider him a Major League Baseball player. I mean, he's been in the league for a while, but I want to see him try to sneak a fastball by him. I want to see him try to throw one by Joey Votto. I'm just not sold that a guy who has zero major league experience is going to get big money from the Yankees without having thrown a pitch the first in the major leagues. The jury's still out on Mas Tanaka. He won't go 24-0 in the major leagues. I can guarantee you that right now. If he goes 24-0, I'll buy his jersey. And I can't stand the Yankees. I grew up a big Michael Jordan fan in my youth. I had lots of posters of Michael Jordan all over my room growing up. And though I never grew up with a skill of playing basketball, I've always loved the game of basketball. Michael Jordan, of course, being one of my favorite players. When Kobe Bryant came into the league. I was 24. I remember him being a young, youthful. What's this guy coming out of high school? What's he gonna do? But Kobe Bryant has proved to be one of the first decade of the 21st century, one of the most dominant players in the game. And I am not one that's going to knock his game. I think Kobe Bryant's a little full of himself, but when you have 5 rings, when you have the kind of accolades that he has, you can be a little cocky. You can be a little full of yourself. But I think personally, this whole talk of Kobe saying one-on-one he would have kicked Michael Jordan's ass is hyperbole to the extreme level. In Jordan's prime, in, say, the first three-peat the Bulls had, there was no player better in the game. No player who could take over a game like Michael Jordan. Now, that's not dissing LeBron James. That's not dissing Kevin Durant. That's not dissing any of the other great players that played in Jordan's era. But, pound for pound, Michael Jordan was the best player in the game. Now, if you take, say, Michael Jordan in his prime, let's say 91, 92, 93, where he was at the apex before his first retirement, he was at the apex of his powers. Scoring, defense, rebounds, leadership. No one was better at his game than Michael Jordan. And you take the top 3 years Kobe Bryant was in his prime. Scoring, no one's going to doubt that. Defense, one of the best defenders in the game. Leadership, I think personally he was second banana on a lot of those great Lakers teams to Shaq O'Neal. He didn't want to admit that, but he was second banana. When you talked about a player, prime time, pound for pound, who would have been better? Jordan took his game to another level and could beat you so many ways. When he first came in the league, he was a slasher. He was somebody that was always trying to dunk. Everybody remembers Jordan's posters. All of them was him dunking, slamming with the tongue hanging out. But as Jordan got older, as Jordan's game developed, and that's when he began to rise from good player to great player to elite player, you saw he had different facets of the game. That deadly fall-away jumper, that sneaky type of drive, and we could just stop on a dime, pull up, snap your neck with the jumper. I mean, even though this is later in his career when he shoved Brian Russell off as he pulls up for the winning shot in the 98 finals against Utah. But when you say with a game on the line, who did you want with the ball? Michael Jordan. You were afraid. Ask Cleveland Cavalier fans. Ask them how many times he sent them home with big shots, clutch shots, time after time again. And while Kobe's good, I still don't think in his prime. And of course, we will never know. We can't take, space age technology and pluck Kobe Bryant from, say, the 2002 season and put him up against Michael Jordan 10 years before. We can't do that. It's fun to speculate, but I say this scribe says, pound for pound, and maybe it's just the old school nature, I think Michael Jordan would be doing the ass kicking, not Kobe Bryant. Now, I'm always talking about the stupidest coach in a specific sport. I've never been a fan of the Van Gundys in the NBA. Bobby Valentine was always somebody I always despised. Rex Ryan, the lampoonish buffoon coach of the New York Jets, is somebody who's always drawn my ire. It's weird that all these coaches are New York coaches. I don't know. It's some sort of common theme. But right now, the coach that is on the top level for the stupidest coach in sports and not just hockey, but in sports, is John Tortorella, the Poobah coach of the Vancouver Canucks. And he used to be a coach in New York. There's that New York connection again. Tortorella I shouldn't say started a fight, but upon seeing the line that Bob Hartley of the Calgary Flames put out in their game last Saturday, put his goon squad out there and said, have at it. He said he was protecting his guys. But unfortunately, 2 seconds into the game, a fight broke out. Oh, no, not a fight. 2 fights broke out. No, not 2 fights. 3, no, not 3 fights. 4 fights broke out. 4. Now, I was told there was 5 fights, but at one point, everybody but the goalies were throwing hands in Vancouver. And the fight was on, and it was just a spectacle. Now, the NHL has been trying to push away from mass fighting. I mean, it looked like something out of the old 70s movie Slapshot. It was just that much of chaos. Now, once the fights got broken up and the penalties were handed out, all 158 minutes of penalties for all the players, and game misconducts were handed out. The penalty boxes both looked like a small village. I'm surprised they had enough players out there to skate 4-on-4, 3-on-3, or how many of they were skating at that time. But they only had just so much room in the penalty box. But between periods, Tortorella decided he wanted to get at some more of the Flames. He wanted to get at Bob Hartley. This fool goes charging down the hallway trying to pick a fight. He's a coach. Coaches don't fight. Coaches don't do stupid things like that. And all he did was do this, look at me. I'm going to be the tough guy. I'm going to stand up for my players. That wasn't standing up for your players. It was making a fool of yourself. Well, of course, the NHL wasn't very happy with Tortorella's actions. They fined him a sizable amount of money and suspended him 15 days, the equivalent of 6 games that he will not be behind the bench for Vancouver. And of course, he's being suspended pay. Bob Hartley of the Flames, for his part, was fined $25,000, and all the other players were fined a game check for being ejected from the game, as is standard league policy. But John Tortorella, trying to defend his actions and saying that he was only looking out for his guys because Hartley put a goon squad out there. All Hartley did was bait Tortorella, the egotistical, stupid coach he is, into making a stupid mistake, and now he's going to have to pay the price. Good job, Tortorella. You confirmed that you are not only the stupidest coach in hockey, but the stupidest coach in all sports. Now we're going to move on to the Fat Dap and Head Slap of the week. Fat Dap is going to Peyton Manning, the quarterback of the Denver Broncos, whose play calling not only was unique in his frequent calls of Omaha, but the city of Omaha decided they were going to reward every time he said Omaha by donating money to the Payback Foundation that Peyton Manning heads. Manning called Omaha 31 times in the AFC Championship game against the New England Patriots and made $800 every time he called Omaha. Now, of course, he didn't know he was making that money until later, but that money was being donated to the Payback Foundation, which made $24,800 for his foundation. Now, of course, this is, going to a charity. I don't think Peyton Manning planned it. It was just part of his game planning. But I give that to Manning for looking out for a city that's about 400 or 500 miles away from his home city in Denver, and turning what would be a quirky play call into a charitable endeavor. Now, this week's head slap goes to the numerous people, unnamed, because I'm not going to give them any kind of publicity, that were blasting Seahawks cornerback Richard Sherman for his exuberance in his post-game interview in the NFC Championship game last Sunday. Now, I'm the first to want to chide Sherman, who's a Stanford grad, very literate, very learned brother, somebody who you could hold up as a standard as this is somebody that is smart, a good player, and someone who gives back to his community, someone who got out of Compton, California, mean streets of Compton, to make something of himself. And is not only a Stanford grad with 3.9 grade point average, but also an all-pro corner. But his rant against Michael Crabtree in the waning moments of the NFC Championship game left a bad taste in a few people's mouth. Now, the thing with Richard Sherman, you can not like the way he presented himself. You can call him punk, chump, a knucklehead, which I favor that. But to call him a thug, I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that because it sounds like code for a bad Negro, if you will. And Sherman is mouthy. Sherman talks a little too much, but he can back it up. Like my man Ali behind me, he talked a lot, but he backed it up more often than not. Sherman talks a lot. I'm not putting him on the same level with the champ, but as it stands right now, he is backing up his talk. But there are so many people who are ready to line up to bash Sherman because he is not the same cookie cutter player. Again, a slap at Roger Goodell for making the players cookie cutter and, someone who speaks in monosyllabic one-liners. Sherman's not like that. Sherman wants to talk. But my head slap is to the Twitter people who went online to bash. And I'm not saying bash Sherman. If you don't like the man, you don't like him. But the way that the terminology they use to bash Sherman, that's the head slap. And on an aside, Richard Sherman got 300,000 new Twitter followers after his performance in the NFC Championship game. So he may be having the last laugh after all. But the head slap goes to the people who wrote the nasty things that I'm not even going to repeat. But taking shots unnecessarily at a great play. Well, with music coming up in the background, that's the end of the visit to the Hoodwood this week. And you can catch the print version of the column Musings from the Hoodwood every Tuesday on ugabsports.com. I write that every week. We've been doing that for the last almost 3 years now. And the video version of the blog, which you're seeing right here, is sent out on YouTube every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, depending on the production schedule. It's been a pretty busy week, so I'm getting it a little bit later in the week. If you have any questions, comments, show topics, or maybe even a video part that you want me to discuss with, you can email me at kjgreen920@gmail.com. Send stuff out. You never know. I may just read it, like it, and put it in and implement it as part of the show. Well, again, that's the show for this week. We'll see you next time. Until next time, fellow sportsmen.